Help us change the culture by buying our latest single from Timcast Records, Only Ever Wanted, by clicking the link in the description below. I want to jump to this story from the Post-Millennial. And I want to talk to you guys about what Portland is becoming, what it is, and I guess why it's important that people get out and vote, not just in the congressional elections, but in your local elections as well. The Post-Millennial reports, Portland street mob shoots at elderly driver, accidentally kills one of their own. Shocking videos emerge on social media showing scenes of a deadly and fiery chaos at lawless street occupations in Portland. At one of the street racing takeovers on Sunday night near the Expo Center, attended by hundreds, an elderly man in a van appeared to be caught in the road before being violently attacked by an armed mob. Video posted on social media shows that as he desperately attempted to reverse and drive away while being attacked, he backed into a car. This is where things start getting crazy. A man in the crowd then fires at least 18 rounds at the fleeing van. A follow-up video shows the crowd catching up with the elderly man who had stopped on a patch of grass. He appeared to be in shock and was bleeding heavily. There were hundreds of people and cars in the area participating in an apparent illegal street takeover. I want to show you this account. It says, my boy's lifelong friend was killed last night at the street takeover. There's a candlelight vigil tonight at 8 p.m. at the Expo Center. Please help get the word out, and please help get candles donated to the location at 8 if you're able to. No BS. Please respect the family. This individual is abolish ICE, abolish pigs, burn down the system. They say, love your friends, be anti-racist, don't F Nazis, black flags. Clearly an Antifa individual in Portland. And what Andy was saying is a lot of these people supporting these takeovers are Antifa. They're leftists. They want the lawlessness. This is what you get. But you know what? For whatever reason, the people of Portland keep voting for it. So I don't know if there is a way to change the minds of individuals who like that kind of scenario, because that I wouldn't want to live anywhere near it. But if that's the case, I don't see a mending of this country in terms of the political divide, especially with how the FBI has been treating people. It seems like an inevitability that there's a national divorce, a civil war or something like that, or maybe a revolution if one side doesn't actually stand up and vote.
Close to home here, just last week, I was on a jog, as it were, on the mall and went up kind of the left side of the Capitol Hill walkway, right? And it's a beautiful just scene. There's mothers there with kids in the carriages and just people having a good time. The next thing I know, 100 or more guys come down on these motorized skateboards going 30, 40 miles an hour with their helmets and Antifa-like gear. I don't know if they were. And it's a wonder somebody didn't get killed. And so I got up to the top of the hill, and the reason why I'm telling you this story is there's a motorcycle cop up there from the Capitol Hill Police, and I go, dude, what's going on here? It's like, how do you not do anything about that? Isn't that your job? And he tells me that they have orders directly from Pelosi and Bowser not to do anything. Okay?
Wow.
That's what's going on here, Tim. And the other story
they like it.
The other story that caught my eye was just this week in D.C., 16th Street, I think, somewhere in Northwest, an NFL player, okay, who has to look formidable, okay? NFL player got shot by two kids with guns, 15 years old. They were trying to carjack. I mean, it's like, why? How does that happen if it's not because there's no law here in the District of Columbia or Portland or everywhere in between? It happens to be these Democrat cities have these skyrocketing crime rates because that's how they roll. And I got no answers for that.
Do you think it's a cycle? No,
it's not a cycle. This is like, I think it's cascading out of control. I mean, this is the whole Rudy Giuliani thing when he was first coming onto the scene and came with the James Q. Wilson broken window theory, the idea that if you let one broken window go without repair, then you'll get a lot of broken windows.
No, my thought is that in democratic cities, being soft on crime gets you elected, but then you have a crime problem, but you can't suddenly be tough on crime because then you'll lose your seat, right?
I'm trying to find out who the heck these people are who are voting for these people. I mean,
Well,
it's just what
cities.
Portland is a great city. It used to be a great city.
Used to be a great city.
It used to be.
I'll tell you how it works.
What is going on there, Tim? You may have got a better handle on this than I do.
I mean, people care more about social conformity than they do about the future of this country. I think that's fairly obvious. I think one of the problem with cities, and this is I believe an inevitability. I remember when I got wrongly pulled over in Chicago, I couldn't do anything about it. What am I supposed to do? Cop gave me a ticket and said, haha, I wasn't speeding. Didn't matter. He said, tell it to a judge. A judge said, go screw myself.
Yeah.
Under 21, my license got suspended.
Yeah.
So what happens then is when you get cops that are using quota systems, or in Chicago, it's real dark, where they have black sites, where they will arrest people and bring them without anyone knowing and beat them, things like that. No joke, this stuff happens. There was one guy who was electrocuting people to force confessions. When you arrest people or give them tickets because you need to make money off them, you're criminalizing regular people who then demand that this stop. And they say, we don't want this anymore. We want the police to back off. Then you get mayors who get elected and say, okay, police back off. Then crime runs rampant. It's a cycle. It's a whirlpool of destruction. This is the crazy thing about these ghost quota systems they claim they don't have. We know they do it. We know that in many jurisdictions there are regular people who are like, hey, it's the end of the month, better slow down. That's a ridiculous notion. But they want to make money. They want to get money from the citations, and then people say, I don't want to have cops around anymore. When we talk about how the left wants to abolish police and they have these principal narratives, a lot of their narratives I think are insane. Right. We learned from, say, like, I think it was the Washington Post, something like between 9 and 19 unarmed black men were shot in like 2019, not thousands like Black Lives Matter was trying to claim. But I'm talking to my friend who lives in in the Baltimore area, and they were like, I don't care about any of that. I want to get rid of the cops because they keep pulling us over on BS charges or BS claims and giving us tickets. And I'm like, okay, I have no argument for that. Like,
but
what am I supposed to say to
Philadelphia
them?
did that, and they are having continued problems. I mean, Philadelphia.
Oh, and then it just falls apart. Mm-hmm. So look. When people, what I hear from like my suburbanite friends and the police is, I got pulled over for BS reasons and they gave me a ticket. I'm sick of the cops. And maybe that's fine if you're in like a low crime, well-off suburb. But then when you start electing people who are like, yeah, we hate cops too, and start gutting them, you get what's going on in Portland. You get what's going on in New York. You get rampant violent crime. You get what's going on in DC and Baltimore, and it's all getting worse. And then you know what these people who voted for it do? They leave. Mm-hmm. They leave and they come to your area and then say, okay, it's kind of nice here. Then they get mad at the way things are being run, and then they vote and gut it again.
Well, Portland breaks my heart. And the idea, this dual system of justice where you observe for over 100 days, and I was in the administration during this, they were just burning stuff down, just breaking stuff down. And then back to our FBI story, I think there's a thread here. It's like the two things I didn't mention, which are on the FBI as well, is like the whole Gretchen Whitmer thing where they had more FBI informants trying to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer than they had a non-FBI informants. And what was the motivation behind that? When they broke that story, Tim, I don't know if you remember, but it was in October, early October, right before the election.
Yeah.
And it was designed basically to tar Trump
with the
right-wing brush. It was an October surprise. And on the January 6th day, we still don't know just why we had FBI informants roaming near the Capitol, some of them on the grounds. That still goes unexplained. But what I do know is that violence that happened was it led to Trump's impeachment. So, I mean, something going on here.
Trump should have sent in the military during the 2020 riots. I thought day 2. That's something I told Tim actually. Day 2 of the riots, I was like, he's got to send in the National Guard. What's happening? Why is he not stopping this? I think for it's the insurrection.
And he was afraid
he'd
be looked at as a fascist.
Don't forget who was the Secretary of Defense at the time. It was the Mark Esper, Mark Milley show, and those guys
lunatics
turned out to be clowns. Just there, one of the tragedies of the first Trump term was all of the people who didn't belong there in powerful positions. It's just,
there is a part of me that's worried about people like Milley, because I view them as deeply corrupt and insane individuals. But I also thought about it. I'm like, well, they're cowards too, so I really have nothing to worry about. They can't do anything effective.
Here's why you should worry. They're killing our combat readiness. Okay?
Well, that's true, though.
To the extent that you divert your attention and resources and organizational culture away from combat readiness and the development of the next generation of defensive weapons to protect us against Russia and China, and instead go down all the roads they've gone down, it's a very, very damaging thing. I mean, the military is in deep trouble right now, morale-wise, combat readiness-wise, and everything in between. And it's because of people like Milley and feckless defense secretaries like Esper. I mean, to me, it's like, Esper, what the hell? Why'd you keep the National Guard far enough away that they couldn't be quickly deployed when you damn well knew that there could be violence that day?
Is it on purpose?
Well, that's the working theory.
Trying to gut the United States to help China?
One working theory is that Pelosi told the Capitol Hill police to go lightly, open the barricades under duress if you needed to. The FBI put agitators in there, and Milley and Esper kept the National Guard far enough away that they couldn't come to the rescue in time, so that they could blame Trump for whatever happened. And they did blame Trump for whatever happened, and those things happened. So put it all together.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. And
do you think Trump should have gotten rid of them earlier? Do you think he should have removed them?
There's an old saying in the Reagan administration that personnel is policy, right? Meaning that if you put the wrong people in, you're going to get the wrong policies reflective of your administration. The Taking Back Trump's America book takes that a step further. It's that bad personnel not only create bad policy, but bad politics. And I go in the Taking Back Trump's America book, I go chapter and verse from the beginning where the original sin of that administration was to get in bed with the rhinos. And then we got like people like Tillerson at State. We got Mattis at Defense. We had Gary Cohn, Goldman Sachs guy of all people, leading the economic policy inside the White House. We lose Mike Flynn to the Russia hoax, Russiagate thing, and we wind up with the globalist H.R. McMaster, and which it was just, I mean, it's a cabinet of clowns, and it just really took its toll. And at the back end, yeah, go ahead.
529. Do you remember that?
529.
Yeah, the insurrection. 529.
No, what's that?
The insurrection on 529. When the far left tried storming the White House and set fire to St. John's Church.
Yes.
Yeah, the 529 insurrection.
Yes.
Yeah, see, the issue is...
There's a subcommittee for that.
Yeah, maybe there should be.
Maybe there should be.
Yes.
So Donald Trump and law enforcement stopped that insurrection when they set fire to a guard post.
Yeah.
When I think it was 70? Was it 70 federal agents were injured in the rioting?
Yeah.
And more, it was like hundreds total throughout several days. The smoke, well, no, the issue is that this is the way things work in the victim, in fifth generational warfare, I'll put it that way. On 529, Trump stopped an insurrection. So who cares? On 1/6, no one stopped a quote unquote insurrection. So it's endless news. And instead of blaming law enforcement for their failure, they blame the individuals who went there. And I'm not talking about the people who are actually violent and rioting. By all means, charge and arrest those people. I'm talking about the people who walked in confused and the barricades were open, the doors were open, and didn't see violence and just were let in by cops taking selfies with people. They get blamed. If Donald Trump on 529 said to the police and law enforcement, stand down and back off. We don't want anyone getting hurt because we'll get blamed for it. Let those people tear the fences down at the White House. Trump would be president right now. The narrative would be that the far left has gone insane. They've crossed the line. They burned down buildings, but Trump stopped them. So there is no narrative about far left violence. Whenever the far left goes out of control, they punch people, they beat people. The media doesn't cover it. The only time there was ever a really big national story was when Andy Ngo was brutally beaten in the street and they had no choice because the photos were horrific.
Yeah.
But you see, the right always tries to stop the left from going out of control. And then if the right ever puts one toe over the line, the media screams at the top of their lungs. So it's that simple. And I can only assume that Pelosi and the Democrats understand that when there's a video of a guy, he's watching January 6th happen. People are going in the building and he looks at the cops and goes, stop them. Why aren't you doing anything? And the cops don't care. They just stand there. It makes you wonder. Not that I know for sure, but I tell you this, there were barely any cops there when there were hundreds of thousands of people that were down there in DC. Why did they let these people do this? There were some cops there trying to stop them, that I get. But seriously, the seat of the federal government could not stop 800 people from walking through a building? Yeah. Is America that pathetic that the federal government had no ability? Okay, if the federal government is that weak, that pathetic, and that ineffective, this country is already doomed. 800 people showed up and we were helpless to stop them. That's the narrative of the January 6th committee, that the federal government has become feckless, weak, pathetic, and ineffective. So my response is, okay, if they can't stop 800 people from walking through a building and they're carrying sticks, maybe we should strip them all of their funding because it's a big, fat waste of money. And then I don't know what we do, hire private companies to handle security in and around the district, I guess, because they certainly couldn't stop it. Amazing, huh?
Yeah. Well, I remember after 5/29 too, everyone was like, Trump got shuttled to a bunker. He's such a coward. Like all the media was against us. And it's like, what are you talking about? We said all of Congress later, like a couple months later, and it made sense, right?
They laughed when Trump was...
The narrative was that Trump was weak for going to the bunker, which is just security protocol. But then we got all those sound bites from AOC telling us how terrified she was and someone banged on her door, which wasn't even true. Yeah.
Well, I mean, someone probably banged on her door, but the whole story...
Not like in the context that she thinks it was, though. Or
yeah, she lied.
As.
You know, AOC lied about what happened on January 6th. She fabricated a story claiming that I thought I was going to die because they made it to my office, even though her story happened an hour before the Capitol was breached. These people are sick, duplicitous. I would argue it is the simpler solution that elements of the federal government told law enforcement to back off, as opposed to assuming the federal government is unable to stop 800 people. It's an insane notion.
It's 2 wins and a loss for whoever told the military to stand down on January. I mean, they were stood down. Whether they were ordered to or not, I don't know, but they weren't there. They weren't stopping us because they didn't want the optics of a bunch of military breaking people's faces, getting into fights, opening fire maybe on the crowd, although Ashley Babbitt was opened fire upon. They also would have an opportunity then to claim like we were being attacked. We need more funding for defense, which is a big win. But the downside is if they actually betrayed us and didn't defend our capital, that's a big problem.
And the idea is, this is what I always see in the memes. This is what they have to do. They have to conflate anyone who opposes the Democratic establishment and the Uniparty with Trump. Michael Malice and and Dave Smith, they're great examples of this. And it's a meme now that if you come out and say something about Biden, they respond by saying, oh yeah, but Trump. And so you can literally be like, you know, Biden did a bad job here. And they're like, yeah, well, Trump did a bad job here. And you can go, yeah, okay, I don't care. I don't like Trump. And they still will treat you like you're a Trump supporter.
Hunter Biden could have the bodies of children in his basement, but Trump economy.
Did you see this Sam Harris thing? You know Sam Harris, podcaster?
Yeah.
He said Hunter Biden could have the corpses of children in his basement and I would not care. Nothing on that laptop would have changed my mind. And then he says, nothing there would be worse than Trump University. And that's how deranged these people are. That let's say the worst case scenario, that Trump University, all that stuff is all true. That Trump had a fake university and defrauded people. Oh, heavens. Sure, would be bad. But then to ignore the fact that Hunter Biden is shown colluding with foreign interests, potentially involving his father, who's the president, assuming Sam Harris saying that's not worse. These people are deranged, literally. They are afflicted with something. They're out of their minds.
I think it would have been better if there was nothing about crack, nothing about sex whatsoever at all on the Hunter Biden laptop, and allowed us just to focus on the real pornography, which was the treason to this country. I mean, that thing hit me so close to home because I spent 4 years in the White House trying to get manufacturing jobs back from China, factories back from China. And Hunter's going over there, leveraging the power of daddy to get $1 billion from the Chinese to buy factories in Michigan and ship them back over there. That's the true obscenity. And to your point, Tim, Sam Harris, I don't know who these people are, but I know the mindset. The mindset is that's the way they think, so that's the way they want everybody else to think. And that's how they use the media. They try to shape the narrative in a way which conforms with what they want.
I think it's the other way around. I think they assume that's what other people think. Therefore, they're saying what they think they have to say.
I think it's an ends justify the means. In the Taking Back Trump's America book, there's a whole section on the media, and the theme about it is daily control to dominate the news cycle. That if you're in the White House, you understand that's your mission every day in the White House. If you're in the press corps, right, you want to dominate the news cycle in a way which makes your guy look favorable, right? And what we fought every day was a media willing to take whatever news there was and misinformationize it. You know, they put it in their blender, right? And there might be like a story in neutral times, which would be the number one story. There might be the top 3 stories. And those wouldn't be the ones that we'd see every day. We'd see only the ones that would be able to either put Biden in a good light or Trump in a bad light or both. And to me, it's just an ends justify the means departure from any kind of morality or ethics. Simply to get, and the funny part is, and it's tragic, is they got exactly what they wanted. They got Joe Biden, and he is destroying everything we hold dear.
But they don't
care.
care.
Everything we hold dear. I guess they don't care. I mean, can they not hold
social victory above anything else? It's not about a good economy. It's not about having food. It's not about healthcare. It's about saying I won.
The they you're talking about, though, are the ones that aren't hurt by this. Okay?
No. I'm talking about the regular voters.
You think?
Look, not every single person, obviously, but when I look to the people I know in my life who voted for Joe Biden, they're staring at record gas prices.
No remorse.
No remorse. Remember what Bill Maher said?
Who are these people? That's what I keep asking.
Remember what Bill Maher said?
Yeah.
If a recession stops Trump, bring on a recession.
Yeah.
Actually calling for pain and suffering of working class people. And the best part is, right now at this student debt forgiveness thing, seeing these people on the left be like, we need to get student debt forgiveness. It's about the working class. And I'm like, bro, college degree holders are not the working class. They're the bourgeoisie. That's what Marx talked about. They're the laptop class. These people are the highest income earners in this country, thinking they're the oppressed minorities. It's true, though.
Yeah, I'll use that, the laptop class.
Well, that's what it is.
That's what it is. That's exactly right.
They think they're deserving of all of this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a guy who's making half the salary they get, writing articles about Brad Pitt's junk, and he's actually doing something for society. You got working class people who build things, who clean things, who fix things. And then you got people who are like arts degree holders who are like, the government should pay off my debts. Yeah, okay, dude.
It's not the government, though. It's me. They're asking the taxpayers to do it. When they conflate the government is paying for it with the taxpayers are paying for it, I get really annoyed with
But
that.
I had an idea. I don't think we can continue to function with people who... Look, I don't like the idea of people taking out loans and then being like, I'm not going to pay them back. But I also don't like the idea of how the interest rates have made it so that somebody who takes out a $30,000 loan ends up paying back $100,000. That's insane. So here's my idea. How about we do this? We'll forgive your loans, but you got to do 4 hours per week of community service at your own discretion, signed off on by a nonprofit or a church. We credit you $50 an hour for that community service. And so long as you're engaged in that once per week, your loans are frozen and can only go down. How does that sound?
It sounds good. I still
Work
want
fair.
them to be able to. I want them to be able to make it easier to declare bankruptcy on student loans. I think
That's a good point, too.
I think the fact that we tell 18-year-olds the only way to succeed in this country is to get a degree that's worth an insane amount of money because we made it so you have to. That will cost you an insane amount. Thank you.
Worth.
That's not worth much.
Chris Carr, please edit me live.
Return on investment tends to be negative.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You're going to have to pay an insane amount of money. The only way to do that is to go into debt the second you're an adult, and then we're going to continue to charge that forever. And by the way, there's no way to get out of this unlike any other loan. Like, it's just an insane system. Why would you ever think this is a good idea, except for the fact that you can trap people who are desperate to try and pursue this idea that college gives you an opportunity, which in this country at this point, it really does not.
It did until about 2006
I
when
think
you could
before that.
study online. Maybe before that.
I just think that the bachelor's degree is an oversaturated market, and so now we have to drive everyone to get their master's, which puts you farther in student debt, which you can't declare bankruptcy on, and just goes on and on.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite, actually. What happened is people who have degrees are too expensive and don't have real world experience. Man, I saw this when I was 18, and I kept telling my friends it's a trap, but they didn't believe me. Now they're all really angry that they can't pay off their debt, but it's this simple. If Ian comes to me and he's like, I make music, and I say, okay, Ian, prove that you can make music. And he goes, here's a piece of paper signed off on by an expensive institution that says I learned how to make music. What am I supposed to do with that? Some homeless guy could walk up and be like, I make music. And I'll be like, prove it to me. And he'll go, oh, McDonald had a farm. And I'll be like, well, he's singing. He's a good singer, too.
can do it.
That's more valuable to me than your certified piece of paper.
Yeah. I mean, the joke is online that you get your bachelor's degree and then you apply for an entry-level job and they're like, do you have 5 years of professional experience? Because it doesn't mean anything.
But think about the kind of person you'd have to be to walk into that trap. Trusting. And that's unfortunate. That there's a lot of people who are going. This is why I'm like, we need to find a solution to this. But I certainly do not respect the entitlement of so many of these people.
I'm not comfortable with charging taxpayers money to pay back Sallie Mae for people's loans. I do not want to do that again. They did it in 2008. Obama paid back and bailed those companies out. I do not want to bail them out again in the guise of a loan repayment. If they want to negate Sallie Mae's books and say, hey, you're worth $580 billion less now, and no, these people are not giving you that 10 grand back each. That's another story. Whether or not it bankrupts Sallie Mae, I don't know. Well, maybe that's not even the worst thing in the world. I'm sure they would say, oh, that would destroy the entire economy if you bankrupted Sallie Mae. We can't allow that. We need to bankrupt you instead. I don't like it. What is your thoughts? I mean, you're an economist. What are your thoughts on this?
If you're going to go to college these days, you might want to think about STEM education, science, technology. It's the key to getting a decent job. The liberal arts, liberal arts are the liberal arts.
I majored in English. I'm
Yes,
okay with saying it's not a key way to employment.
I think what you want to do right now to educate yourself is download a survival guide, learn how to raise livestock, and some rudimentary, engineering. Because even Mark Ruffalo, in an interview about whether or not he's going to be the Hulk, he was like, well, the way things are going, hopefully I'm still around and there's a world that can, exist to do this. So even he's kind of thinking maybe this is all going to implode and the world's going to end.
Yeah, I mean, the paradigm has shifted with the access to online education. I remember back when I was at University of California, Irvine, teaching back in the 90s, I was actually one of the first pioneers of online education back then. And the people inside the university were totally against it because it gave direct access to students in a cheap way, and it threatened the whole tenure paradigm and things like that. And so I think today there's a lot less need for the kind of 4-year college thing that people do. I mean, just go. There's so much you can learn online. And be done with that. But I always felt bad that these people would take on these huge loans. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's a scam. And my professor elites. I mean, we had it pretty good, right? You kick back and you don't pay as much attention to teaching as you should and things like that. I'd see this among my colleagues. The academy has not done its duty to our young people. And we get what we get. And it's you folks. I mean, I'm an old guy. I'm talking to a very young demographic here. it's a very different world you're growing up in. You know, back when I was your age, we had the dream. You know, we could get the good job, the picket fence, the house, the car, and this, that, and the other thing. And that's both not within reach for a lot of people and really not their dream anymore, which is interesting in and of itself.
I went to an antique store. They had an old radio. It was very, very big. It was like 3.5 feet tall, 2 feet wide, and the knobs on it were like tiny. And there was a wheel that would click, you know, to like you're spinning through the frequencies or whatever. And the funny thing is, I thought about it, I'm like, when this thing was sold, the guy who sold it, that was all he did. He worked quite literally at a radio store, and he fed a family of 4. He had 2 cars, and he went on vacations, and all he did was sell radios to people.
Yeah.
Now that's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Today, both parents are working full time, and neither can afford anything.
Yeah. No, it's and look, the concern I have as an economist and as somebody who is concerned about the prosperity of this country is whatever our educational system is today, it's simply not delivering competitive individuals in a global marketplace. I mean, it's just not.
No, it's not.
It's just not. And we spend more on education, I think, than any country in the world, and we get less.
But would you say that our education is overpriced? I mean, I think
Oh,
there
no-
are
no question
so
about it.
many things
There's
that
no
we could
question
do
about
to
it.
cut down
No
on it if
question
we
about
really
it.
wanted to have everyone graduate from
I
college.
think the only reason why they do the 4-year thing is because there's a football season or something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
really,
and
that's
because the
just-
first 2 years you spend doing general credits.
You don't need to. There needs to be the total revolution in education.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.